Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming Forward. Today in this Unturned map review, we're going to be covering a map called Japan. And this map did very well. It got 89 out of 100. Now, something to consider about this map before we go over the review is that it is an insane size map, which is pretty crazy. And because of this, certain things will be a little bit different, but regardless of that, we tried to grade it fairly compared to the other map sizes. So just because it's an insane size map does not necessarily mean it got more points than if it was a normal or even large size map. So as usual, we're going to go over some of the strengths of this map and why it did so well. And then of course, we're going to go over some of the weaknesses and some of the few ways that it could be improved. So let's start with some of the strengths, and one of the best things about this map was that it included plenty of food and water. In fact, this map actually pretty much avoided large map syndrome altogether, which is crazy to think that it's an insane size map. All throughout the map, you were finding plenty of food and plenty of water, even in locations that you would not normally find food and water. And of course, it all made sense, such as countertops and sinks in a military base had food and water, whereas most maps would just have military spawns in those locations. So overall, just a really good spread of those resources that are just necessary for survival. Now, this map also included a lot of high tier areas as well as ranged weapons, which is something that a lot of maps have trouble with. There was at least 3 radiation zones throughout the entire map, and there was quite a few military locations with mega zombies as well. And a lot of these locations were very cool to explore and really challenging to actually get to, so it was very good in terms of high tier content. In terms of the ranged weapons, it also did very well because it included a broad spectrum of civilian all the way up to military ranged weapons, and we did see a lot more spawns than we normally do on some maps, and this really just helps with high tier content as well. Also, something to note about that is it had an airdrop, and that also included ranged weapons, so if you see one, it's definitely worth picking it up. Now, one thing you may be thinking about is how large the map is, and one thing that plays directly into that is the type of vehicles and the amount of vehicles you find throughout the map, and of course that's really important for an insane size map. And this map did really well in including a decent amount of vehicle spawns as well as maintenance gear, so when you do find a vehicle, you are able to take care of it and bring it with you all across the entire map. So of course, the larger your map is, the more important it is to have vehicles, and this map did a very good job of including those. In terms of the detailing of the map, it was actually pretty good, a lot better than you'd expect for an insane size map. There's a lot of good detail put into specific locations, and just overall, it was definitely better than average. So a lot of hard work was put into this. Obviously, it's an insane size map, which is just giant in comparison to everything else. So the fact that he was able to fill it up as well as he did with having pretty good quality is just really impressive. Lastly, this map included custom NPCs and quest lines, and we didn't get too far into them in the survival. It was kind of hard to find the NPCs due to the size of the map, but when we find them, it was just a good touch to have, just extra stuff to do, extra storylines, something to get you interested in caring about what's actually happening on the map and in that environment. So overall, a very, very good job. Obviously, 89 out of 100 is a very good score. It's actually one of the top 3 that we've ever reviewed, so good job with this map. So now let's move on to some of the weaknesses, and of course every map is going to have some sort of weakness, so even if this map isn't going to get an update, it'll at least be something to think about as a map maker of what you can try to avoid when making your own maps, especially ones that are such of a large size. Even a large map, or if you're trying to make an insane size map, these are things to consider. So one of the main weaknesses and one of the harder things to deal with when you're making such a large map is that the landscape was sort of shabby. Now, it definitely could have been better. It was lacking a lot of landmarks and more dynamic landscape. There was a lot of just sort of hills and that sort of thing going on, and not much decoration along with that. So the addition of caves and just anything to break up the landscape would have really improved it and made it a lot more interesting while traveling across the map. Another thing relating to the detailing of the landscape has to do with the ocean around the islands, and a lot of the ocean was actually barren, which was a little bit disappointing because you could have put a lot of coral reefs and boulder structures down there, maybe a few caves and even an Easter egg. So there's a lot that could have been done with the ocean that just wasn't. Now, of course, something you cannot tell from the map is that part of the ocean was actually blocked off, and I think this was a good touch because there's just a lot of open water that's not utilized in this map. So something that was really good that the map creator added is that he put a lot of no-clip borders so that you can't get past certain parts of the ocean. So it kind of reduces the playable size and keeps it from being just miles and miles of open sea that you pretty much just get lost Boston. Now, as mentioned before, the detailing was very good in this map in certain places, but there's also a decent amount of copy pasting that happened, and of course it is an insane size map, so there's a ton to detail, so many houses, so many towns, so many shops, but the more you can avoid copy pasting, the better. Even if you copy paste, use similar materials, but just rearrange everything, it'll sort of eliminate that problem, make it a bit more interesting, and add a little bit more quality to the map. So if you cover those things, that's a lot of what you have to worry about in terms of the major aspects of the map, but there are a few more things I want to mention, including Easter eggs. Now, one of the things that would have put this map over the 90 mark for our rating score is if it would have included 1 or 2 decent Easter eggs. Now, some of the things we're looking for is an unmarked location that's kind of hidden, it includes valuable item spawns and zombies, and just has some sort of cool aspect about it that's a bit custom, that's different from every other part of your map. If you can include at least 1 or 2 of those in every single map, our score in terms of our map review will definitely go up. People will enjoy it a lot more, and it'll just be one of those cool locations that's pretty epic to find when you're just a survivor. So definitely consider adding Easter eggs into all of your maps. It definitely increases the value, makes them a lot more fun to play as well. The last small thing I have to mention has to do with the difficulty of mega zombies. Now, I do understand it's important to have them in order to increase the difficulty of the higher tier areas. It gives the player something to work towards. Killing a mega zombie is a pretty big feat and it can be very fun. We want to make sure that the challenge is appropriate for the gear that you give them. Now, one of the mega zombie spawns was way too difficult. I ended up unloading probably 200 to 300 ranger rounds into it, which is just way too much ammo to spend on a mega zombie. Something also to consider about the mega zombie is what type of drops you're giving. And for that zombie, it gave me a rucksack and a couple grenades, which is definitely not worth 200 to 300 low tier ranger rounds. So definitely include something higher tier like a Alice pack, military night vision, adaptive chambering, something that's actually worth it to get from a mega zombie. Otherwise, it's not worth killing and it's just a waste of time for the player. But anyway, that's pretty much it in terms of the critiques we had for the map. Obviously, it did very well and it only really needed improvement in some smaller areas. So anyway, guys, there'll be a link to the map in the description below. Please check it out if you haven't already. It's obviously very popular. Insane size maps that are this well done are extremely rare on the workshop, so I'm sure all of you have probably heard about the map at least already. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you want to see some more. I will see you all later.
Listen.